Hey, what's up everyone? This is Tim, and we got another tutorial here for you. Today we're going to be taking a look at going over how to create this realistic oil drum, and the textures are included, so go ahead and download that project file, and that way you can follow along. And yeah, let's go ahead and get started. We'll open up a new scene inside of Maya, and this is going to be more of a basic modeling tutorial. We will be going over as well how to apply those textures to the model. So if you're a little bit more advanced, you might want to take a look at some other tutorials we have on the website. But this one we're going to be going really slow over a lot of different tools, and that way people that are new inside of Maya can follow along. So let's go ahead and get started. What I'm going to do is just make sure we're in our polygons tab right here, and also make sure, since we're going to be modeling with polygons, that we're in our polygons tab up here as well. And this is our shelf here, so we can use a lot of different tools from up here. We're going to be using a cylinder, obviously, because we're modeling a oil drum. So we'll start with that, and we'll just drag it out here, and then we'll also drag it up. There we go. Got our cylinder started. Now, one thing I want to go over real quick. These are your move tools right here: move, rotate, and scale. You can also have that on your keyboard by hitting W, E, and R. Okay, if you hit Q, it'll take you back to just your mouse and pointer. So W, E, R. So W is moving, you can move your object. E is rotation, and R is for scaling. Okay, so I'll be using those hotkeys quite a bit, and I'll go over the way you can use some tools from here, also from here, and then also the hotkeys form. That way you just have a wide range of options that you can choose from, and I'll kind of tell you which one you would want to start getting used to, just because once you get more advanced inside Maya, you're going to want to start using those. So with our cylinder selected, let's go ahead and hit W, or make sure we're using the move tool, and we're going to go ahead and go over here and bring up our tool options. Okay, so we'll show our tool options. Right now, if I reset this to default, you're going to see here that my default, I think, is the marquee. Under your common selection options, the default is marquee here. Okay, and all that means is that if I am selecting my object, I have to select everything individual. If I go to drag, change that to drag, you're going to get what looks like a little paintbrush, and it's going to be really beneficial for us, and I'm going to share why right now. So go ahead and change that to drag under the tool options. Here we go. We have our cylinder selected, and we want to select the faces of our cylinder. Okay? I'm assuming you might know a little bit about faces and vertices and edges, but if you don't, I'll go over it real briefly. If you right click on your mouse, you'll pull up a whole bunch of different options. You have vertexes, an edge, a face, as well as some other ones, but I'm not going to go over them right now. So an edge, as you can see here, we have these little lines that now show red. If I select the edge, I move an edge up, you can see what all that edge controls. Okay. If I do a face, it's going to be the actual faces, and you can see what all that controls. Okay. And then a vertex, that's going to be the actual individual points that make up the object. So if I select a vertice, what's referred to, you can see what all that affects. Okay. So as we right click, we want to select our faces to begin with, and now that we have changed our tool settings to that drag, instead of having to click and shift and hold each individual face like this, if we want to select all of these, all we have to do is just click it and hold down and drag until we have all of them selected, just like you're painting that area that you want selected. Okay, so we'll click and drag and paint the area we want. Makes it real fast and convenient. And what we're going to do is make sure, like I said, we're in our polygons tab here, so we have all the options we need. We're going to go to edit mesh, and you can see here grayed out, you have vertex, edge, or face. Okay, we want to have our faces selected, so we want to go down to face and hit extrude. Alright, and it brings up this option box here that looks like it's all three of those things combined, all three of these things combined. That's because that's exactly what it is. So we see we have a move option here. We can move it, okay, up or down. we can also rotate it. If you see this circle around here, if we click on it, it brings up our rotation options. You can rotate it. And also if we click on any of the three scaling here, if we just click on it, it brings up a scale in the center, and we can scale it down evenly. And that's what we want to do. Let's go ahead and scale it down evenly and just give us a slight edge here. Okay? Just a slight edge to bring out another face there. Now that we have that done, I want to show you here, if I try to pull this down, it's going to pull down all those faces, or pull up all those faces, either way. So, and for what we're making, we don't want that. Sometimes you will want that, but we don't want that right now. So what we're going to do is, since we have all these faces still selected, let's go ahead and extrude again. So mesh tools, or edit mesh, excuse me, get a face and extrude again. And now if we drag it down, it's not going to control all these faces. It's going to actually give us some depth here. Okay? So, that looks really good. And I think that's all we need right now for this section. So, we have a little bit of depth now, and we have kind of a lip to our oil drum here. And let's go ahead and go over another tool that we're going to be using quite a bit, and it's going to be a tool called the Insert Edge Loop tool. And that's going to be found under Mesh Tools. Scroll down, Insert Edge Loop tool, and it's exactly what it sounds like. You're going to just insert an edge around your object. So right now, we have nothing right here, but we want to insert an edge. So it's going to insert an edge, and it's going to do it evenly across the entire object, which is exactly what we want, all the way across. And now that we have that, if I right-click and go to my object mode, so if you're either edge, vertex, face, or any of these other ones, object mode gets you back to what you originally, or what the default is, where you just can select the object, okay? And now I have all these faces that I can select from, because I inserted that edge. So now if I go to face, I have all these other faces I can select from. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to select all these faces. And sometimes when you're selecting faces, this little move tool gets in the way. So you just hit Q. It hides that and brings you back to your pointer view. Okay. Just Shift, and you can just paint this. And sometimes you might paint the wrong thing. And if you do, it's not a problem. Just hit Control, and then just you can paint over it. Okay. And we'll Shift select all the outer faces here. Again, if you accidentally paint some wrong things, just Control and gets rid of all that. So if we have all of our outer ones selected, an easy way to check and see is if you hit 4 on your keyboard, okay, it goes to wireframe, you can see, okay, I got all of them selected. We'll hit 5 and we'll be good to go. Now I've been showing you how to extrude by going to Edit Mesh, under Face, hit Extrude. But that actually does take, quite a bit of time in the modeling world. So a faster way to do it is if you're familiar with right-clicking, pulls up this option box here. But if you actually hold Shift with your faces selected and right-click, Extrude Face is just right there. Makes it a lot simpler. It's a lot faster. And once you get into the hang of doing that, it's going to make your life a lot easier. So we have our extrude ready to go, and this time we're going to pull it out to give some depth. Okay? How about like that? Not too far, just enough. And that looks good. Go back to our object mode here, and let's go ahead and adjust some of these edges here. I'm going to select all these edges, so grab one, Shift select all these edges here, and we want to delete these, and the reason why, it's kind of hard to explain, so just trust me on this. Delete these, and I'm going to explain it for you later. Once we get to that spot, I will come back to this and remind you why we deleted these edges, okay? So we have all these edges selected, and we're going to go ahead and hit Delete on the keyboard. And now we have a nice lip to our container. It comes in, and then it actually drops down, and you have a nice top to the barrel, okay? Looking good. And what we want to do now is probably go ahead and do the exact same thing to the bottom, because we want it to be identical, alright? So we'll go ahead and go to our faces, hit W on the keyboard to bring up your move tool here, and we will select all of our faces here, and shift, right click, extrude face, and now we'll bring them in. Not much. And then, like I said before, you can shift, right click, and extrude again. That way we, instead of moving these faces like this, we'll add actual depth to it. But you can also, since extruding was the last thing we did, you can see over here, the last tool that was used was the extrude tool. There's a hotkey on your keyboard you can do, which is G, and G will just reuse the last tool you just used. So instead of right clicking and going to, shift select, right click and go into extrude face, or even going up here and doing it, you can just hit G on the keyboard, and then you're good to go. It'll reuse that last tool, which was the extrude. Now if that last tool was something else, it would reuse whatever is in this little area right here, okay? So we just hit G, and that is very helpful, especially if you're modeling something and you're extruding a lot, and you just keep hitting G over and over and over again because that's the tool you're using. So very helpful there. Okay, we got that looking good, and now we're going to go ahead and insert our edge loop. Yet again, I want to share with you, you can go up here to the mesh tools and then go to insert edge loop tool. You can also, with your model selected, shift select, shift right click, and then you can see it's actually everything's changed now, and we can go to our insert edge loop tool. So if we had our faces selected and we shift right click, it's going to bring up options for our faces. If we have our object selected, object mode, shift right click, it's going to bring up options for our object mode. So it's very handy, and once you get used to using it like this, it's going to be very useful, and that's why I'm trying to teach this to you early so you get in the hang of using these hotkeys and this quick selection. Okay, so right click with your model selected, insert edge loop tool, it's right there, and now we can insert our edge loop, go to our faces, hit W on the keyboard, and we can start selecting these faces here all the way across. Shift select, make sure we got all of them. Hit 4 on the keyboard, make sure we have nothing else selected and all of our faces selected. Looks good. Hit 5, go back to our shaded mode, and we will, so we can't hit G right now to redo our extrusion because that wasn't the last tool we used, so we have to go shift, right click, extrude the face, and again we'll just bring it out. You want to kind of match it to the same depth as that, which wasn't that much, so that looks pretty good actually. And we'll keep it there. And don't forget, now we'll go ahead and right click, select our edges, and we're going to delete all these edges. It's going to make it a lot easier. And just hit delete on the keyboard to do that. And we're looking pretty good. We are looking like we're ready to go ahead and texture. Alright, so we got a pretty good model so far. Things are looking great. Added some, depth to it. And let's go ahead and add a texture to it. And then we'll continue furthering to enhance our model after the texture has been added. Alright, with our model selected, go ahead and right click, go all the way down to Assign Favorite Material, and we're going to assign a blend material, okay? And it's okay if you're not familiar with texturing, we're going to go everything real slow, and this is, like I said, the basic tutorial, so everything at a really easy to follow pace. So under our color option here, you're going to be able to see that we have a option box. If we click that option box, you can assign a file node, which is going to allow you to attach a image file to your texture. So we'll hit File, open up the image we want, and this is the image that you can download with the product files that's available, and we'll hit Open. Now, nothing has changed here, but if we hit 6 on our keyboard, which brings up the texture mode, you can see what we have, and it doesn't look very good right now. It's all stretched out, it's not in the right spot, but at least you can tell it's assigned to our object. Okay? If, by the way, you don't see this over here, this attribute editor, you can just find it up here. Okay, this is something called the channel box, which we won't use, and this is the attribute editor, which is what we are going to use to change a lot of the different settings. Okay, so if you don't see it on the side there, you can just go to on the top here. Alright, so let's go ahead and fix this texture, because right now it is all stretched out and doesn't look very good. If we go to Edit UVs, go down to our UV texture editor, you're going to see our object here laid out, and it looks really distorted and everything's kind of all in a weird way, and you can see where it's getting its texture information from. Okay, so we need to kind of clean up this model and make it look a lot better. So what we'll do is minimize this. I'm going to select the areas that are the trouble areas, and you can see where it is. It's the area where it's connecting from the drum to the lid and to the bottom. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to hit W on our keyboard, go down to our faces, select all these faces on the front here, but then we're also going to select all these faces in between and all the faces on the top. So everything that has to do with the top of the lid. And a quick and easy way to do this is if you hit Shift, period, you can see there it just selected this rim right here. If we hit it again, Shift, period, then select the next rim around it. And of course you can keep doing this over and over again until it selects every thing in your model. But we just want to select the lid. So this is a really quick and easy way to select all the faces on the lid without having to worry about, painting it and dragging and selecting some of the wrong faces. So we have all those selected, and we're going to go to Create UVs, Planar Mapping. Now let's bring up the option box here for the planar mapping so I can show you what it is you want to have set. The default for the tool is bounding box, and we don't want that. We want the best plane. So we're going to fit the projection to the best plane, select that. And then also we want to keep image with the width and the height ratio. So select that. And as we select that, if we hit project, you're going to see now it looks completely different. And if we go back into our UV texture editor, you can see here, if I move this up and scale this down, it's now completely detached from our drum, and we can move it around, rotate it, and we can put it where we want it. Let's go ahead and zoom in here, and I'll make this a little bit bigger so hopefully you guys can see. And the movement for inside your texture editor is just the same you would use for inside of Maya. Hit Alt and you can move it, and you can zoom in and out, but you can't rotate because it's not 3D, it's just 2D. So it's just a 2D editor. Alright, that looks pretty good. I want to make sure you don't get any of the black around the edges. That's what we're looking for here. Make sure you fill up as close as you can without getting any black, okay? It looks pretty good, and you can always double check by looking on here. I'm happy with that. And now we need to do the same thing with our bottom. So if we just hit W, so we can select all these things, and now hit Shift period, and Shift period one more time, so we have the entire bottom lid. Create UVs, planar mapping, we can go and just click it again because it'll remember the changes we made, so it's already set up for what we need, so hit project, and we're good to go. And now we can move this towards the bottom and scale it down. Just make sure it's fitting inside this lid, and it looks pretty good. You can always look at the object mode too. Now of course we have one more thing to fix, and that is the way this looks. So it's already laid out pretty well. So we'll select our object, and you can see here it's already laid out pretty well. It's just the wrong size and shape. So what we need to do is, if you click this tool right here, this is your Move UV tool. So if you click this and you select this group of UVs, you can now move it, and you can actually see here as I move this, it's changing the texture, because this is just our cylinder laid out flat. That's all this texture editor does, is it takes a 3D object and lays it out flat, so you can add a 2D image to it. So if I hit R again, it's going to bring up our scaling options, and I can just scale it all the way over. Move it to make sure that it's in the right spot. So I need to scale it up a little bit too, not by much, just a little bit. And the goal here is to get it as close as the edge as possible without going into the black area. Don't want that, okay? Looks like I have a little bit of room to work on my scaling of the width here. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So I have a little bit of black here, so if I go over here to the back of the drum where that would be, you can see that black line. And that does not look good. If I make it bigger, you can see how it gets bigger. I want it to close up and be just about right. There. Pretty good. And if this was a better texture, the line would not be there because the seam would be gone. But we can go back through and either repaint our texture or feather that out. Not a big deal. Or we could just render it from the front so it looks better. Alright, so now we actually have our texture applied to it, and it looks really good so far already because this is a nice high quality texture with good scratches and everything, so it looks really good. But we're going to continue on and add a little bit more realism to it. You can see here our texture has these two bands that go across, and most oil drums are set up to where it kind of bevels in, goes out, bevels in again, goes out, and that's what we're going to want to make. So if we select our oil drum, we're going to insert some more edges using that tool we use. So shift, right click, insert edge loop tool. We're going to insert one right here at the top of the light brown, and then also at the bottom of the light brown area. Okay, and do the same thing down here, so you can see that this is the dark brown and the light brown's right here where it separates. We'll do the top of the light brown, bottom of the light brown, and we'll go ahead and go to our face selection, and we'll select all these faces, the new faces we just made. Make sure we have no other faces selected. Hold down shift to keep selecting. And we can also select these ones up here. So shift, select these ones up here. Alright. Hit 4 on your keyboard just to make sure you have what you want selected and not anything else. Looks good to me. Go back to our 6, which is our shaded mode. Now we can shift right click, extrude this face out, and you can see how this becomes very useful and how using that quick menu can be very good. So with that selected, make sure that we have our move tool. We're going to move it in Z out just a little bit, about like that, maybe a little bit more. Add those rings and give it a little bit more depth, and that looks pretty good. Alright. This is our model. If we go back and look at it, looking very good. I'm pleased with it. Now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and add some more resolution to this. Okay, because right now we have like this face, and it's just not a very high quality resolution model. One of the best ways to do this, and the easiest ways, is to go ahead and just smooth the model out, which will just overall make it look better. You can see here from the top how rigid this is, like dink, 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 dink. Obviously very low resolution. So we're going to want to smooth this out, which is just going to increase the amount of faces and make it look a lot better. So with our polygon tab shelf selected, go over here to your smooth option, hit it once, and you can see here it's already looking better because it's smoothed everything out and it's added a whole bunch more faces. We're going to go ahead and hit it again, and looking even better. Maybe even one more time we'll hit it. There we go. So now we have a lot of faces. You can see if I go to the face here, you can select each and every individual one of these faces, and our resolution has increased dramatically, and our oil drum is starting to look really good. Let's go ahead and see, as you can see here. Very good. But there's one thing wrong with it, and that is that it's too perfect. One of the things that sucks really bad about doing, modeling inside a computer is that everything is perfect, because you can make a perfect square, you can make a perfect cylinder, and it's really hard to get away from that. And that's why the way you add any type of realism, or what makes it look good, is if you add wear and tear, make it look banged up, make it look rough, and that's why these nice textures with the scratches and all that looks really good, because nothing in the real world is actually perfect. It's been used, it's been knocked around, especially something like an oil drum, which would be transported a lot. So now that we have our topology, or our model increased in resolution, we can go ahead and start painting it. And what I mean when I say this is, if we go to our mesh tools, we can go down to Sculpt Geometry tool. This is a very cool tool, which is you can actually literally sculpt your geometry and give it a different look. And that's what we're going to do, because it's very organic and it makes it look very worn down and beat up. But let's go ahead and pull up our tool options first. I'm going to bring my radius, I think the default is a lot higher, so bring your radius down to 0.2, what this is set at. Under your brush settings, radius down to 0.2, and then also your max displacement. I have mine set at 0.02. I'm going to bring it up just a little bit to 0.04-ish, I think. See what that looks like. And then we'll bring it down and bring it up, and we'll change it around a little bit. So what this does is, if I go ahead and just start painting on here, you can see it adds that indentation. I don't know if you can tell that much, but I'll go ahead and just add a little bit more. Just add a little bit of an indentation into your model. Okay, if I select off of here, you can see now model's actually been indented because we just sculpted on it. Alright. I'm going to bring it down to begin with to 0.3. 0.03 in our max displacement. And then start painting. So I'll paint over here. I will paint some on this logo here, go around the middle section, and you just want to paint all around this drum. And really, the more random it is, probably the better, because it's just been used a lot. So just random paint strokes all around the entire drum. Just have fun with it. And of course, for a better look, you can always get out of this mode that has the object selected. So once you got quite a bit painted, and you feel good about it, you can go ahead and exit out of the tool mode here and take a look at what it looks like. Already, you can see this is looking a lot better because it's not perfectly smooth. You got some ridges in there, looking good. Let's go ahead and add a little bit more though. So if I bring my tool settings and bring this max displacement down to value maybe 0.01, let's see if that actually changes. So it's going to change a little bit, but not that much. And I'm pretty much just going to paint everything here, just to go over all of it, because that way it's not all perfect. It's got messed up. And let's just paint the whole thing here. Just gives it a little bit of, you know, randomness to everything. So it's not all perfect. It's all been used. It's all messed up a little bit. Alright? Especially on the logo here. Gotta get that look. Let's see what that looks like. Oh yeah, that's already looking much better. Much better. And what we can do is we can even go in and add, let's just keep adding just different layers of this value of 0.02. And looking at the model, it looks like I need a little bit more inside here, so let's select this and then a little more up inside here. You can adjust the radius of your paintbrush too, which will change just the size of how big these indentions are. I'm telling you, you really can't overdo it with stuff like this, because it just adds so much believability to your models, especially ones that you want to have this organic look to. And what we could do is we can even bump it up to maybe a value of let's see, 0.05, and just add really subtle, big indentions. Not everywhere, not as much as we've been doing, but maybe just little places where it just really got dinged up. You want to be careful. You don't really want to go over your seams, because it will press in, and I'll show you what I mean here, and it'll just crease your geometry, And if I click over here, you can see how it's crimped, and that doesn't look good. You can tell it's obviously fake. So be careful about where you, when it's increased like this, the displacement's increased, where you paint, and make sure it's not displacing your model. Okay. So I'm going to take a look at maybe one right here. Let's take a look at this here. Man, that's looking pretty good already. Get X out of this tool here. That's looking really good. Looks like a pretty believable thing to me. I like it, and you can always do some on the top here too. We haven't really painted any on the top or on the bottom here. Feel free to go ahead and do that. But pretty much this is it. This is looking really good. You can see how adding that displacement really increased the believability of the model and how realistic it looks, because nothing in the real world is perfect, and it's so easy to make perfect objects inside of a computer. And so you gotta find ways to displace your models and make them not perfect, make them more organic, because that's the way the real world is. Okay, well, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to contact me. I'll do the best I can to answer all the questions, and hopefully you guys learned something from this tutorial, and encourages you to try to model other things besides this and really add some realism, and increases your workflow productivity as well, and using some shortcuts and using some different options in how to select those tools. Again, hopefully this wasn't too much for a beginner tutorial. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and we will see you on another tutorial. Thanks a lot.